You are not falling apart. No one looking at you from the outside would even know something was happening. You are still showing up, still answering the messages, still making dinner, returning calls, nodding when people speak to you. From the outside, everything looks fine. But you know, beneath all that doing, beneath all that showing up, there is a quietness that has been growing for longer than you can remember. A question you keep postponing. A feeling that the life you are living, the one that looks completely reasonable from the outside, no longer fits the way it used to. Not a crisis. Nothing dramatic. Something quieter than that. Something that only comes to people who have lived long enough to know that the old map no longer works. Maybe it arrived slowly, the way a season changes, not in one dramatic moment but in 100 small ones. The morning you woke up and could not remember the last time you felt genuinely excited about something. The afternoon you sat in a room full of people you have known for years and felt, somehow, like a stranger to yourself. The night you lay awake, not with worry exactly, but with a kind of formless wondering, is this it? Is this all there is? What am I supposed to do now? And the hardest part, the part no one talks about, is that you do not even know what question you are trying to answer. You just know something is asking to be heard. You have probably tried to push through it, kept yourself busy, made lists, told yourself you were being dramatic, that people have real problems, that you should be grateful, and all of that is true, and none of that has touched the quiet thing underneath. Before we begin today, I want to say something just between us. I wrote this script during a season of my own quiet, searching one of those in-between times when I didn't have answers, only questions. If you're in that place right now, this one is for you. Today, I want to share something that the Buddha taught more than 2,500 years ago, not as doctrine, not as religion, but as the most practical, most human wisdom I have ever encountered, about what it means to stand at a crossroads and not know which way to turn. 7 teachings, each one a small lamp. Not to show you the entire path, but to light the step that is right in front of you. And stay with me until teaching number 5, because what you hear there may finally give you the one thing you have been waiting for. Not an answer. Something more valuable than that. Permission. The permission to stop waiting for certainty before you begin living again. If these words feel like they were written for you, it is because, in some way, they were. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell. Every week, we walk this path together, slowly, without rushing anywhere. Your story matters. And now breathe. Let these words find you. There is no rush here. There is a reason this feels so unfamiliar. You were raised in a world that rewarded certainty, that admired people who knew exactly what they wanted and went after it without hesitation. From the time you were very young, you watched decisiveness be praised and hesitation be treated as a weakness. You learned quietly over many years that not knowing meant something was wrong with you. So you learned to project certainty even when you didn't feel it. You learned to make decisions, to keep moving, to fill the silence with action because silence felt dangerous. And for a long time, that worked. Life was full enough, busy enough, demanding enough that the quieter questions never had room to surface. But life has a way of clearing space. Children grow up, roles shift. The noise that kept you occupied for decades begins to settle, and in that settling, things rise that have been waiting patiently for years. The not knowing you feel right now is not a new problem. It is an old question that finally has enough quiet around it to be heard. And here is what no one ever told you. The people who never question their direction are not wiser than you. They are simply less awake. The fact that you are pausing, that you cannot simply keep running on the old script, is not your failure. It is your integrity announcing itself. The path forward does not begin with an answer. It begins with the honesty to admit you do not have one yet. And that honesty, that willingness to stand in the not knowing without immediately filling it with noise, is itself the first act of wisdom. Let's walk into that wisdom now. Together. Teaching 1. Confusion is not the enemy. Forcing is. There is something important I need to say before anything else, and I need you to hear it fully, not just hear it pass by. The pain you are feeling right now is not coming from the confusion itself. It is coming from your resistance to it. Think about that for a moment. The crossroads you are standing at, it does not hurt because it exists. Crossroads are simply places where paths diverge. What hurts is the story your mind tells about being there. The story that says you should already know. That by this point in your life, you should have figured it out. That standing still means falling behind. That uncertainty is a problem to be solved, rather than a season to be lived. The Buddha taught something that took me a long time to truly understand. He said that suffering is not caused by what happens to us. It is caused by our resistance to what happens to us. There is a difference between pain and suffering, and that difference is everything. Pain is unavoidable. It is part of being alive, part of caring, part of living a life that matters. But suffering, that particular quality of anguish, of fighting and straining against what is, that is something we add ourselves, often without realizing we are doing it. When you wake up at 2 in the morning and your mind is circling the same questions for the 100th time, trying to force an answer, trying to think your way to clarity, trying to solve the not knowing like an equation, you are not getting closer to peace. You are agitating what was beginning to settle. Here is an image the Buddha used that I return to again and again. Imagine a lake after a storm. The water is dark, churned up. You cannot see anything beneath the surface, no bottom, no depth, no clarity. Now imagine you walk to the edge of that lake and you plunge your hands in and start stirring, trying to clear it faster. What happens? The water gets murkier. The sediment rises. Everything that was beginning to settle gets disturbed all over again. The lake does not clear through effort. It clears through stillness. And your mind, your beautiful, exhausted, searching mind, works the same way. The clarity you are looking for is not hiding from you. It is already there, underneath. It cannot rise to the surface while you are churning. It rises when you stop fighting the murk and simply allow the natural settling to happen. This does not mean doing nothing. It means doing something very specific. Letting go of the requirement that the answer arrive on your schedule. Letting go of the story that confusion is failure. Allowing the not knowing to exist without immediately treating it as an emergency. What would today feel like if you gave yourself permission to simply not know, without apology, without urgency, without the weight of the belief that something is broken, even for 1 hour, even for 10 minutes? Confusion is not a wall. It is a waiting room, and something is preparing itself on the other side. Teaching 2. The river knows its way. I want to tell you a story. Sit with it slowly. Let it unfold at its own pace. There is no rush here. There was once a student, a man who had reached a particular moment in his life when everything he thought he knew about himself had stopped making sense. He had done everything the right way. He had worked hard, honored his responsibilities, cared for the people who depended on him. And now, in the quieter stretch of life he had always imagined would feel like arrival, he felt instead like he was standing in an empty room, wondering where the furniture had gone. He went to his teacher. He sat down heavily, the way a person sits when they have been carrying something too long. I stand before 3 paths, he said. All 3 are possible. All 3 feel uncertain. I cannot choose. And the longer I stand there, unable to choose, The more I feel I am failing at the one thing life is asking of me. The teacher listened without interrupting. When the student finished, the teacher did not speak. He simply stood and gestured for the student to follow him. They walked together through the forest until they reached a river. It was not a dramatic river, not rushing white water, not dramatic falls. Just a wide, quiet river moving steadily through the afternoon light. The teacher sat down at the bank. The student sat beside him. They were silent for a long time. The student watched the water. It moved around rocks without arguing with them. It found channels between fallen branches without calculation. In some places, it slowed. In others, it quickened, but it never stopped. And it never seemed to be in distress about where it was going. Finally, the student spoke. "Which bank should I cross to?" The teacher said, "Look at the river. Does it ask which bank to reach? Does it calculate the pros and cons of this direction against that one? Does it compare its options and worry it has chosen wrongly?" "No," the student said. "It simply moves," the teacher continued, "in the direction of what is natural to it. Not laziness, not passivity, something older and wiser than thought. It finds its way not by reasoning, but by flowing." The student was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, "But I am not a river. I have to make a decision. People are counting on me." The teacher smiled. The kind of smile that holds both warmth and truth at once. "Yes," he said, "and that is precisely why you are suffering. Because you have been treating your life like a problem to be solved, when it is actually a river to be entered." Silence. Sit with that for a moment. Where in your life have you been treating your own direction like a math equation, when what it actually needs is simply your willingness to move? The Buddha taught something that runs completely against the current of how most of us were raised. He taught that there is a kind of wisdom available to us that is not produced by thinking. It is older than thought. It is the same wisdom that moves rivers toward the sea without a map, that grows trees toward light without instruction, that tells certain birds the direction of warmth without ever having been south before. In the Zen tradition, this is sometimes called effortless action wu wei, moving in the direction of what is naturally and deeply true for you, rather than fighting your way through life on the strength of willpower alone. This does not mean you stop making decisions. It means you begin to trust that beneath all the noise and analysis and pressure, there is already a direction that is truer than any of your calculations. And it reveals itself not when you think harder, but when you become still enough to feel which way the current is moving. The river does not force its way, it finds it. And so, in time, will you. Teaching. 3. Your body already knows. Before your mind has found the words, your body has already answered. This is the teaching that most people skip past, because we live in a world that has trained us, especially those of us who have spent decades being responsible for others, to override the body's wisdom in favor of logic. We have been taught to push through, to manage, to function regardless of what we feel. But here is what the Buddha understood 2.5 millennia before modern science confirmed it. The body is not separate from wisdom. It is one of its most direct expressions. He taught that the path to understanding begins not in the mind, but in what he called the first foundation of mindfulness, the body. Not the body as a machine to be maintained. The body as a living, responsive, endlessly honest oracle. Think about this for a moment. When someone asks you to do something that is genuinely wrong for you, not just inconvenient, but genuinely wrong, there is a sensation that accompanies the yes you may still say. A constriction, a heaviness, a small and quiet closing down. You may not name it in the moment. You may override it with logic. This is the responsible thing. This is what's expected. This is not the time to think about myself. But the sensation was there. And when something is right for you deeply, truly right, there is usually a different quality. An opening, a sense of something releasing, even if the thing itself is also frightening. Even if choosing it requires courage. Even if you cannot fully explain it, the body knows the difference between what is true and what is merely acceptable. When did you last make a decision and feel your whole body exhale with relief? Not because it was easy, but because it was true. When did you last ignore that feeling and choose the logical option instead and spend months or years quietly regretting it? When did you last trust what you felt over what you calculated and discover, only later, that you had been right all along? The not knowing you are in right now may be in part a result of spending too many years making decisions from the neck up. Decisions based on what should be done, what others need, what makes sense on paper, and the body patient, faithful, unhurried, has been keeping score. Here is a practice that costs nothing and requires nothing except a few quiet moments. The next time you are facing a choice, any choice, large or small, instead of analyzing it first, sit quietly with it. Place one hand on your chest. Breathe slowly. Hold the choice in your awareness without grabbing at it or pushing it away. And then ask, very simply, does this open me or close me? Not forever, not in every possible future, just right now. Does thinking about this path bring a sense of expansion, a soft brightening, a feeling of aliveness, or does it bring contraction, a dimming, a sense of something in you quietly retreating? You do not need to act on what you feel immediately. You are simply learning to listen again, to re-establish the conversation between your mind and the deeper knowing that lives beneath it. Wisdom does not always arrive as a thought. Sometimes it arrives as a breath finally released. Sometimes it arrives as the particular quality of stillness that follows when something true has been recognized. Your body has not been wrong all these years. It has been speaking, and today is as good a day as any to begin listening. Teaching 4. The difference between waiting and hiding. This is the teaching that requires the most honesty. Not from me, from you. I am going to say something that is said with care and with full recognition that only you can know whether it applies to you in this moment. But it needs to be said, because it is the teaching most videos about stillness and waiting leave out, and leaving it out does people a quiet disservice. Not all stillness is wisdom. Some stillness is patience. Some stillness is trust. Some stillness is the genuine, grounded, peaceful resting of a person who is allowing something to ripen in its own time. That kind of stillness is a virtue. It is, as the Buddha taught, one of the most difficult and most rewarding practices available to a human being. But some stillness is something else entirely. Some stillness is fear wearing the clothes of patience. It is avoidance that has found a spiritual language to justify itself. It is the voice that says, I'm waiting for clarity, when what it actually means is, I am afraid of what will happen if I choose. The Buddha's teaching of the middle way, one of his most foundational teachings, speaks directly to this. He discovered, through his own experience of both extremes, that liberation lies neither in frantic, forcing action, nor in endless passive withdrawal. The middle path is not a compromise between two mediocre options. It is a quality of movement that arises from genuine clarity rather than from compulsion or from fear. And the only way to find that middle path is to ask yourself, honestly, which side you are currently on. Think of a garden in late autumn. A person who is genuinely resting, genuinely waiting for the right season, is still tending the garden. They are still watering what is already growing, still removing what has died, still preparing the soil, still present to the garden even in the quiet. They are not forcing the bulbs to bloom ahead of their time, but they are not sitting in the house either, watching through the window and calling that wisdom. A person who is hiding, genuinely hiding, has left the garden unattended. They are inside, where it is warm and safe and nothing is required of them. And they are telling themselves a story about seasons and timing that sounds very peaceful and very spiritual, and has underneath it a very simple human feeling. If I don't go back out, nothing can go wrong. Which are you doing right now? Are you in a genuine season of becoming, tending, listening, allowing things to ripen that are genuinely not yet ready? Or have you been using "I'm not ready" as a way of protecting yourself from a life that is patiently, gently, persistently waiting for you to step back into it? There is no shame in either answer. Both are human. Both make complete sense given everything you have been through. But only one of them will take you forward. If you are genuinely resting, rest more. Trust that. Honor it. The world can wait a little longer. If you are hiding, this is the most loving thing I can say to you. Your life is patient, but it is not infinite. The garden is waiting, and you are the only one who can tend it. Pause when you need to. But know the difference between resting and hiding. Only you know. And you already know. Teaching 5. You do not need certainty. You need one step. This is the teaching I promised you at the beginning. And I want you to receive it fully, because it may be the most important thing you hear today. Let me tell you about a woman who spent 30 years tending a small lamp. She lived near the base of a mountain that pilgrims crossed in order to reach a monastery high among the peaks. The path through the mountain was not simple. It was long and winding, and in the dark, many travelers lost their way. Every evening, without exception, this woman lit a lamp and placed it at the entrance to the mountain path. Every morning she cleaned the glass and trimmed the wick. She did this for 30 years, through cold winters and long dry summers, through seasons when pilgrims came in large numbers and seasons when no one came at all. One autumn evening, a young monk who was preparing to make the crossing stopped at her door. He was anxious. It was his first time making the journey, and he wanted guidance. "Do you know the path through the mountain?" he asked her. "No," she said simply. "I have never traveled it." The young monk was surprised. "Then how do you help anyone?" She looked at the lamp in her hands for a moment before answering. "I light what I can see," she said. "The travelers carry the light forward themselves. Sit with that. You do not need to see the entire mountain. You only need to light what is directly in front of you. The next step, just the next step." The Buddha did not know he would find enlightenment when he sat beneath the Bodhi tree on that particular night. He had been searching for years. He had tried every path available to him. He had pushed his body to its limits. He had studied under the greatest teachers of his time and found that their answers, while true, were incomplete. He sat beneath that tree, not because he had finally figured everything out, but because he made one commitment, quietly and completely. "I will not rise from this seat until something in me has shifted. Not I will not rise until I have all the answers. Not I will not rise until I am certain. Only I will stay present to this moment, fully, without running from it." And in that quality of presence, not certainty, but complete commitment to right now, everything changed. This is what the Buddhist teaching of Sada faith actually means. Not religious faith. Not the faith of believing things you cannot see, but the faith of trusting the path itself, even when the destination is not yet visible. The faith of the woman lighting her lamp each evening without needing to know which travelers it would reach. The faith of the river moving forward without needing to see the sea. You have been waiting for certainty before you begin, but certainty in the sense that most of us mean it, the complete and guaranteed knowledge that the choice we make will work out exactly as we hope. That kind of certainty does not exist. It never existed. It was never available. And waiting for it is not wisdom. It is a very understandable, very human way of asking life to guarantee something it simply cannot guarantee. The people who have built lives of genuine meaning and peace, they did not begin because they were certain. They began because they were willing. They took one step while still afraid. They lit one lamp without knowing who would need it. They sat beneath one tree without knowing what would happen there. You have been waiting for permission. This is it. You do not need to see the whole mountain. You do not need the entire path to illuminate at once. You only need today's step, the one small, honest, possible thing that moves you even fractionally in the direction of what feels true. Not the perfect step, not the certain step, just one real step, taken with whatever courage you have available right now. That is enough. That has always been enough. You don't need to know the whole way. You only need to know today's step. And somewhere inside you, beneath the noise, beneath the questions, beneath the long months of waiting, you already know what that step is. Teaching 6. When you come home to yourself, everything finds its place. Here is something I want you to notice. On the days when you have slept well, when you have had a little quiet, a little space, a little time that belonged entirely to you, how do you see things differently? Not the things themselves. The things are the same house, the same relationships, the same unresolved questions. But something in the quality of how you encounter them shifts. Problems that seemed immovable begin to show their edges. Decisions that were clouded begin to clarify. People you love who perhaps exhausted you the day before seem, once again, like the people you chose to love. This is not your imagination. The Buddha taught, and this is one of his most practical teachings, one that every serious student of the Dharma comes to recognize in their own life, that the outer world, to a remarkable degree, reflects the inner one. Not in a mystical sense, not as a promise that positive thinking creates positive outcomes, but in the most grounded, observable, daily sense. The lens through which you see your life determines, in large part, what your life looks like to you. When you are depleted, everything feels hard. Not because everything is harder, but because you are meeting everything from a place of emptiness, of exhaustion, of a self that has nothing left to offer even the simplest moment. Decisions feel impossible. Options feel equally wrong. The future feels opaque. When you have tended to yourself, even briefly, even imperfectly, something in the quality of your perception shifts. Not because the circumstances have changed, because you have, and you meet those same circumstances from a different place entirely. This is why coming home to yourself is not indulgence. It is not retreat from the world. It is, as the Buddha understood it, the prerequisite for engaging with the world wisely. The feeling of being lost, of not knowing what to do, which way to turn, what the next chapter is supposed to look like, is often not a sign that the answers don't exist. It is a sign that you have been looking for them while running on empty, while tending to everyone and everything except the one presence that makes all the tending possible, you, here, in this body, needing care like every other living thing needs care. What would it mean to give yourself, today, even a small portion of the attention you have given so generously to others for so many years? Not as a reward you have to earn, not as something you will get to when everything else is handled, but as the very foundation from which everything else becomes handleable. When you are rested, you see more clearly. When you are at peace within yourself, you bring peace into the rooms you walk into. When you have spent even a little time in genuine quiet, not distraction, not scrolling, not busyness, but actual quiet with yourself. Things that had no words begin to find them. Come home to yourself first, not last. Not when everything else is settled. First. Because everything else settles more naturally, more gently, more wisely when you do. Come home to yourself and watch how much of what felt impossible begins, quietly, to find its place. Teaching 7. You are not lost, you are becoming. I want to end with the truth that I hope stays with you longest. What if you are not lost at all? What if everything you have been feeling, the uncertainty, the searching, the long pause at the crossroads, the quiet wandering in the middle of ordinary afternoons, what if none of that is the problem? What if it is the beginning of something you have not yet found a name for? The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is often received as a teaching about loss, about the fact that nothing lasts. And that is true, nothing lasts. But there is another way to hold this teaching, one that does not diminish it but opens it entirely. Impermanence is not only the teaching that things end, it is also the teaching that endings create space, that every chapter that closes clears the ground for something that could not have grown while the old thing was still standing. The version of you that knew exactly who she was and where she was going and what came next, that version served you well. Honor her. She carried you through decades of real life, real love, real difficulty. She showed up when showing up was everything. But she was a version, not the final word, not the complete story. And the you that is standing at this crossroads, uncertain, searching, a little tender, a little brave, she is not behind the woman who had all the answers. She is ahead of her. Think of a tree in the depth of winter. From the outside, it looks bare, stripped, perhaps even dead. The branches reach into cold air without leaves, without color, without any visible sign of life. Someone who did not understand trees might look at that tree and feel grief for what seems to be lost. But underneath, in the dark quiet of the soil, where no one can see, something entirely different is happening. The roots are going deeper than they have ever gone, drawing up nutrients that do not yet show on the surface, preparing, in the invisible depths, for a spring that is already on its way. What looks like stillness from the outside is preparation from the inside. What looks like loss is consolidation. What looks like an empty tree is a tree gathering everything it needs for the most extravagant flowering of its life. You have lived long enough to know that the seasons you feared the most were often the seasons that shaped you most completely. The losses you were certain you could not survive. The transitions you did not choose and did not want, the chapters that ended before you were ready. And you survived them. More than survived. You were changed by them, deepened by them, made truer by them. This is one of those seasons. Not a crisis, not a failure, not evidence that something went wrong. A deepening. The uncertainty you feel is not emptiness. It is space being made. The questions you carry are not signs of something missing. They are the right questions, finally given enough quiet to surface. You are not lost. You are on the edge of something you have not been before. And that right there is exactly where new life begins. Not in the having of all the answers, in the courage to keep walking while still holding the questions. Not in the certainty of the destination, in the willingness to take the next honest step. Not in the return to who you were, in the slow, brave, beautiful becoming of who you are still, even now, even here, in the middle of all this uncertainty, learning how to be. Today we walked through 7 teachings that asked one quiet question in 7 different forms. What if the not knowing is not the problem but the invitation? You learned that confusion is not your enemy, that it is a waiting room, not a dead end, that the lake does not clear through more stirring, it clears through stillness. You sat by the river with a student who learned that life does not need to be solved, it needs to be entered, moved into, with the same natural trust that water finds its way through stone. You were reminded that your body has been keeping a wisdom you have spent years overriding. That beneath all the logic and responsibility and self-overriding, something in you has always known the difference between what is true and what is merely acceptable, and that it is never too late to begin listening again. You were asked honestly, gently, to tell the difference between resting and hiding, between genuine patience and the quiet avoidance that wears patience's clothes. Only you know, and somewhere you already do. You received the permission you may have been waiting for longer than you realize, that you do not need certainty to begin, that you only need one step, that the woman who lit the lamp did not need to know who would find it, only that the lamp was needed and she could light it. And so can you. You were reminded that coming home to yourself is not retreat. It is the most direct path to seeing your life with clarity, that the lens through which you see everything, every choice, every relationship, every possible path forward becomes clearer when you have tended to the one who is doing the looking. And you were offered last the possibility that has been true all along, that you are not lost. That what feels like an empty winter is a tree going deeper. That what feels like standing still is gathering. That what feels like uncertainty is the specific texture of becoming something you have not yet been. There is only one thing left now, not a plan, not a resolution that requires perfect conditions to begin. Just one small, honest act today. One moment, even 5 minutes, when you turn inward instead of outward. When you sit with the question instead of filling it with noise. When you choose, for just a little while, to stop treating your own uncertainty as a problem and start treating it as a conversation. A conversation between you and the deepest part of yourself. The part that has been patient. The part that has been waiting. The part that already knows more than your tired, striving, searching mind gives it credit for. You do not need to have it figured out by tomorrow. You do not need to have chosen a path by the end of this video. You only need to say, quietly, to yourself, I am here. I am listening. I am willing. That willingness, small and uncertain and completely genuine, is the beginning of everything. If these words found something in you today, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what is one thing you will do today, even something small, to listen to yourself more deeply, to be a little more honest with yourself about where you are and what you truly need? Your answer may be exactly the words someone else needs to read today, because none of us are as alone in this as the silence sometimes makes it feel. If you found yourself here, stay with us. Every week on this channel we walk slowly through teachings that have been waiting 2,500 years to find exactly the person who needs them. Subscribe and let us keep walking together without hurrying anywhere. And before you go, one last thing. You are not behind. You are not broken. You have not missed your moment. You are a person becoming, slowly, imperfectly, beautifully becoming. And that always, in every season, at every crossroads, in every ordinary afternoon when the questions rise and the answers stay quiet, that is enough. That has always been enough. You are enough.